Yo, huge shout out to the Naughty Gang, and I'm gonna give away a $10 code of your guys choosing, whether it be Xbox, PlayStation, Steam, or even just PayPal. All you guys have to do is tell me what your favorite loadout in this video is. But I'm gonna give you guys the top 5 meta loadouts in Warzone. These are the only ones you're ever gonna need, and the bright side is you don't even have to be all the way leveled up. So this is beginner friendly and this is advanced friendly. So whether you guys have the gun maxed out or you guys just have it level 30 or something, this applies to you. But we're gonna start out with the one I believe is the absolute strongest. Each one of these weapons have their own specialty, like being the fastest movement wise, strongest overall, etc. But we're going to start with the strongest one, which is the H4 Blixen. So starting with the H4 Blixen, we put on the recoil booster for the increased fire rate. Now the reason I use this is because it already has extremely high damage, so the increased fire rate makes it even better. Now some people worry about the reduction of accuracy. Trust me, it doesn't even do anything. Now say you didn't have recoil booster, but you did have some attachments. The best alternative would be the Mercury silencer for the sound suppression, horizontal recoil control, and bullet velocity. You want this thing to hit as hard as you can and as quick as you can, so this will be the beginner friendly alternative. Next, we're moving on to the Janssen 9 RMK for the increased damage range, and increased bullet velocity. You get a reduction of recoil control and accuracy, hip fire accuracy, and headshot damage. But trust me, these don't even matter when you see how fast this weapon absolutely melts. Now if you are a beginner and you don't have this all the way leveled up, you can use the Carlson 17. It's the first thing you unlock, and honestly it may be way easier to control with recoil, and your movement speed is considerably faster. Now the aim walking movement speed increase, firing visibility of weapons, and horizontal recoil control, that's the plus. You get a reduction of bullet velocity, but you do get to fix that with lengthen later on. You do get a vertical recoil control reduction, but trust me, you're barely going to notice it. Some people choose to use the Bergstrom 17 F3 for the recoil control and accuracy and bullet velocity and flinch resistance. Completely up to you if you want to use this, but I'm telling you, the Janssen 9 RMK is the strongest version and will kill the absolute fastest. I put on Slate Reflector, but this is my personal preference. Some people choose to use a niter, some people you choose to use other things, and that's completely up to you. I'm happy for you, whatever you choose to use. Moving on to remove stock for the increased movement speed, sprint to fire speed, and aim down sight speed. You get a reduction of flinch resistance, recoil control, accuracy, aim walking steadiness. But guess what, the pros are much more noticeable than the cons. The recoil isn't even going to be that much noticeable, especially with the type of weapon this is and the attachments we're going to put on there. There's really no other alternatives, maybe this one, but I've never really seen anybody rock this. So I think this is honestly the best option overall for beginners and pros that are using the H4 Blixen. Moving on, we're going to use fleet for the weapon swap quickness and movement speed. I don't think that there's alternative for this either, just because this is the first option and it is basically the best option. I don't really see another one, but you guys can let me know what you guys think. Moving on to quick for the increased sprint speed. Now some people would like to use on hand, completely up to you if you want to use that, or fully loaded, but since quick is the first option, this is overall best option for beginners and pros. I threw on the groove grip. This is for the pros. Now it's for the increased ADS firing move speed and horizontal recoil control with a reduction of sprint to fire speed and aim down sight speed, which we already compensated for with previous attachments. Now if you don't have groove grip leveled up, the best alternative would be hatched grip for the vertical recoil control, horizontal recoil control, and flinch resistance. If you don't have that, I mean, it's either probably stippled grip, that would probably be your next best bet, but hatched would probably be the best alternative if you're a beginner and you have that available. Now Garanko 7.62 54 round mags. You get recoil control and accuracy, headshot damage, aim down sight speed, and magazine ammo capacity. Now you get a reduction of bullet velocity and range and bullet penetration, but if you don't have this, the best alternative would honestly be the 36 round. It's recoil control and accuracy, increased torso damage, aim down sight speed, and hip fire accuracy. You once again get a bullet velocity and range and bullet penetration reduction, but the thing is, this actually does more damage for the torso compared to this doing more headshot damage. So I honestly think they're both good. You get much more bullets with this, and I think that you won't even notice the damage increase regarding the torso. So the people that have this all the way leveled up, I would overall use the 54 round mag, but if you're a beginner, then Garanko 36 round mag will not let you down. I throw on lengthen for the increased bullet velocity. I don't see another alternative, maybe subsonic. Subsonic is very good, but you have to realize that due to the bullet velocity reductions on this gun with previous attachments, the lengthen attachment will be very helpful, and I don't know if subsonic would actually be the best bet. Completely up to you though, you can try it out for yourself. Last but not least, I put on the SG98 compact for aim walking movement speed and reduce scope sway and gun bob. Now if you want this to be a movement builder, you don't have it all the way leveled up, you can throw on the Mark VI skeletal for aim down sight speed and movement speed. If you want some more recoil control, you can throw on the Carver grip, but I haven't really seen people use that. And this is the first weapon for the top 5 meta loadouts. Next, we're gonna move on to the STG, and this thing is absolutely incredible. So make sure you guys try every single attachment I give you guys. We're starting out with the MX Silence for the sound suppression, horizontal recoil control, vertical recoil control, and damage range with a reduction of aim down sight speed and sprint to fire speed. There really is no other alternative. You unlock this second, so I don't really suggest throwing the scythe compensator on there. I mean, you might as well just level this up one more level to get it to the MX silencer. Throw on the VDD 760mm05B for highly accurate and controllable damage range, reduced scope sway and gun bob and bullet velocity. You get a reduction in sprint to fire speed, aim walk movement speed, and hip fire accuracy. But this is a long range to mid range weapon, so you're not really going to try to use this close range. I mean, you probably can get a kill or two close range, but it's optimal to use this appropriately for what it's intended for. This one is okay, and I think it is pretty good regarding damage range and bullet velocity, but with this is just the overall much better option because it's highly accurate, controllable, and reduced scope sway and gun bob. I use the SVT 40 PU scope 3 to 6 times. Now, if you don't have this unlocked, it's completely fine, but I used it for the magnification toggle, accuracy, variable zoom, telescopic scope, and 3 to 6 times magnification. Trust me, it's actually very useful, and I feel like it has less recoil. But if you do not have this unlocked, because it is kind of up there, then the G16 2.5 is absolutely fine. And honestly, some people prefer the 2.5 because of the increased recoil control, and it's a compact scope. It's not as big, it's much easier to, you know, single out an enemy or two, so it's completely up to you whichever one you choose to use. Next, we're using the VDD 27 Precision for the horizontal recoil control and aim down sight speed, slight reduction of hip fire accuracy and movement speed. Now, if you don't have this, then the best thing alternative wise I can tell you would maybe be the Constance Tactical. I don't really see the folding as a good option just because it decreases the initial fire recoil, and then you don't really need this for a sprint to fire speed / movement speed build. You're not using this as a movement AR, you're using this as a distance AR, so like long range to mid range, and you're most likely going to be mounting with this weapon. So Constance would be the good alternative, but VDD 27 Precision is honestly the best option. Sleight of hand is overall the best choice if you don't believe that Vital actually makes a difference. I believe it makes a difference, but sleight of hand is what the meta would be. Next is on hand. Regarding meta, we're using on hand because it increases aim down sight speed, but if you don't want to use this and you can use fully loaded, there's really no alternative for this though. Next is the pine tar grip. Now, some people are going to be scratching their heads on this, and I was too, but apparently this actually controls recoil much more than the other ones. Now, this increases recoil control and hip fire accuracy, but if you do not want to use a pine tar grip, I would not be opposed to you using the rubber grip, or no, that's about it. Just about the rubber grip. The rubber grip would be the best alternative if you did not have the pine tar grip. I mean, pine tar grip is all the way down here, so rubber grip is a good alternative to throw on there until you get to pine tar. Next, we're using the 8mm Kerr 60 round drum. Now, I was scratching my head on this one as well, but you realize that this one does more damage. It's very good, very powerful, and if you guys have heard of the EM2, this is basically like the EM2 with little to no recoil. Now, some people, if you don't have that, then you can completely use the Gorenko 50 round mags for the recoil control and accuracy, movement speed, aim down sight speed, and fire rate, and it's still going to be very good. Trust me, this weapon's still going to be incredibly powerful, still going to kill very fast, just not as fast as the 60 round drum. Next, I threw on lengthen for the increased bullet velocity. Unfortunately, there's no real alternative other than maybe subsonic, but I don't really think you need that. And Carver foregrip. This is the last one for the vertical recoil control and hip fire accuracy with a slight reduction of aim down sight speed. Now, unfortunately, the M1941 hand stop actually doesn't control the recoil as much. You would think so, but it doesn't control the recoil as much. So this is actually the best choice, and considering it's the first thing you unlock, you should choose Carver foregrip. Next, we're moving on to one of my personal favorites, which is the Armaguerra. Now, this SMG is absolutely nut. We're going to start out with the recoil booster for the increased fire rate with a slight reduction of accuracy. There's no real alternative. I mean, if you don't have this unlocked yet, then just use the strife compensator until you get it unlocked for the increased vertical recoil control and flinch resistance. But honestly, recoil booster is the best option, so just level it up, get it there. Moving on, we're gonna use the body 315 MMC2, I'm thinking that is, for the increased damage, less damage fall off at long range, and bullet velocity. You get a slight reduction of recoil control and accuracy, but this build is already a very controllable build, so we're gonna move on. But if you don't have the unlock, then I guess the best alternative would probably be nothing. Actually, you'd probably just need to get this all the way leveled up. So my best bet, if you don't have body 315mm C2 unlocked is just to wait to level that up, maybe go no barrel, because these would probably hurt you more than actually help you. Next, we're going to move on to the slate reflector, and if you don't have an optic that's actually available, like you see these are all the things you actually need, then the best thing to do would just be to run without an optic, because the iron sight is actually easy to use and you can still see the enemy. Moving on, we're going to use the Armaguerra SA folding for the sprint to fire speed and movement speed. You get a slight reduction of initial fire and recoil, but that's completely fine. Like I said, this build is going to be very easy to control. We're going to throw on Vital for the increased torso damage. You get a slight reduction of recoil control and accuracy, but once again, you're not even going to notice it. Plus, Vital with increased torso damage is going to melt the enemies incredibly quick, is what I'm also using for the increased sprint speed. Now I'm using tape grip for aiming stability, movement speed, weapon swap quickness, and sprint to fire speed. But if you don't have this unlocked and you're at the beginning, then hatch grip is honestly the best option for the vertical recoil control, horizontal recoil control, and flinch resistance. Trust me, it'll give you even less recoil than it already has. Now I throw on the 9mm 60 round mags for the magazine ammo capacity. You get a slight reduction of aim down sight speed, reload quickness, and movement speed, but this is the best option. Do not use another mag. This is the best one. I throw on lengthen for the bullet velocity. Now some people actually recommend hollow point, and I've tried it out plenty of times. Believe me when I say this does not work well for it. Even close range, it doesn't work well for it. I'm guessing because it doesn't have much bullet velocity or doesn't have much range, but trust me, lengthen is the best option. So get it all the way leveled up. If you don't have it, just throw on FMJ until you get it. It's literally the next level up. Moving on, we threw on the Mark VI skeletal for the aim down sight speed and movement speed. You get a slight reduction of hip fire accuracy, but if you don't want to use this, even though it's the first one, you can throw on the Carbon foregrip if it's kind of hard to control the recoil. I don't think it will be, but you get increased vertical recoil control and hip fire accuracy with a slight reduction of aim down sight speed. But I believe the Mark VI skeletal is the best option. Next, we're moving on to the fastest SMG meta in Warzone right now, which is the Marco 5. Trust me, this thing is so good and the movement is incredible, so we're just gonna get right into it. We're starting out with the recoil booster for the increased fire rate with a slight reduction of accuracy. Now if you do not have recoil booster, then you can move on to the F8 stabilizer for the increased accuracy and increased damage range. Now you do get a reduction of sprint to fire speed and hip fire accuracy, but it's not even going to be something very noticeable. Trust me, this build is incredibly fast. Next, we're moving on to the Perfetto Lesto 355mm for the aim down sight speed, movement speed, aim walking movement speed, defense fires, sprint to fire speed, bullet velocity reduction, and recoil control reduction. Now I don't really think there's an alternative for this one. If you don't have this, then you might as well just, I don't know, maybe use the Armaguerra 342. If you don't have this, then don't use either of these just because they're not really optimal for you. The Perfetto is the best choice. I threw on the slate reflector. If you don't have this unlocked, then you're kind of not really in the best situation. You might as well just level it up. It's kind of easy to farm contracts. You'll just make sure you have this weapon out and it'll be really easy to level it up. Next, I use the Armaguerra FR for the initial fire and recoil recovery, aim down sight speed, movement speed, and a slight reduction of accuracy and recoil during sustained fire, which is something you won't even notice. If you do not have this unlocked, then I believe it's perfectly fine to use the body HF folding for the hip fire accuracy, aim walking movement speed, aim down sight speed, and sprint to fire, but this is just my preference. This one is better and it's literally the next unlock, so make sure you're running this if you have it unlocked. Next, we have on Frenzy, but considering this is one of the last attachments, I would assume that you do not have it if you're a beginner. So if you don't have it, you can use momentum. It increases move speed after kills, but Frenzy actually regenerates health after kills. So imagine being incredibly fast, flying around the map, out moving people, and then regenerating after killing them. Next, we throw on Quick. This is the first attachment, so you're not going to have an alternative. This is the best one. Next, we have on the taped grip for aiming stability, movement speed, weapon swap quickness, sprint to fire speed. Now, the one thing, if you do not have taped grip, which actually helps with the movement build, then you got to throw on the hatch grip to control the recoil a little bit more. Now, it's horizontal recoil control increase, vertical recoil control increase, and flinch resistance increase. Very good, and I think it's a great option until you get to taped grip, but trust me, you do want this because it definitely helps with the movement. We're going to move on to the 9mm 48 round drums for the increased magazine ammo capacity and slight reduction of reload quickness. So basically there are no cons. Now here's the only thing, if you don't have this unlocked, you can use the 9mm 36 round fast mags and you have no cons whatsoever. You only have 36 bullets, but trust me, you'll be able to use them efficiently to get at least 1 or 2 kills. Now if you want to absolutely max out on your movement, which is something I kind of don't recommend the trade-off for, you can use the 8mm Curves 36 rounds The reason I recommend this is because of the increased bullet velocity, damage range, bullet penetration, and movement speed. Fantastic. Downside is the recoil control and hipfire accuracy, more so the recoil control. This is actually one of the harder weapons to control recoil with this attachment, which is why I would only recommend it in maybe solos, and I'm saying maybe. The best option really is a 9mm 48 round drum. Last but not least, we're throwing on the Mark VI skeletal for aim down sight speed and movement speed with a slight reduction of hipfire accuracy. Now for the last weapon I'm going to recommend, the NZ41 is absolutely amazing, and trust me, it's one of my favorite ARs to use. We're going to start out with the MX silencer for sound suppression, horizontal recoil control, vertical recoil control, and damage range with a reduction of aim down sight speed and sprint to fire speed. Now, I mean, if you don't have the MX silencer unlocked yet, then I guess you can use the G28 compensator just until you get this unlocked, but it's only one level up, so get the MX silencer unlocked and use this. This is the best option. Next, we're using the Orb Weaver 360 MMBC for the highly accurate and controllable, reduced scope, sway, and gun bob, and bullet velocity with slight reduction in sprint to fire speed and hip fire accuracy. If you don't have this, then I don't really know an alternative. I don't think that these are better for you. I mean, maybe the Orb Weaver custom for the damage range, but aside from that, it reduces your recoil control and accuracy, which is something that's kind of important on the NZ. So you kind of need the Orb Weaver 360 MMBC unlocked to unlock it to its full potential. Next, I used the SVT 40 PU scope 3 to 6 times. I've told you guys this is a preference scope. I think that this is a great scope, but some people prefer the G16. So if you want the G16, then it's the second unlock. It's pretty easy to unlock, and the recoil control might be slightly better. So if you want to use that, completely up to you. I mean, it's like a very, very small difference, but it's still very good. It'll still kill very well, so use this if you are a beginner with this gun. Next, we're using the Orb Weaver E-Pack for the recoil control, recoil recovery, accuracy, and flinch resistance, slight reduction of movement speed, aim down sight speed, and sprint to fire speed, which is not that important considering this is going to be a long to mid-range AR. An alternative for this, I don't really have a great option aside from maybe the Ravenwood padded for accuracy and recoil during sustained fire. But aside from that, I mean, maybe the Lore MK3SC, but you would need to be mounted for the most part or crouching. So, I mean, it's a little bit of a disadvantage, and Ravenwood probably would just be the best alternative. The downside to this is the initial firing recoil. Next, I threw on Brace for the initial firing recoil. I mean, there's no other option. It's the second option, so it's much better to use Brace than maybe the other ones. I use fully loaded, but if you're a beginner, then you don't really have anything, unfortunately. But fully loaded just gives you ammo to start out with, so I mean, it doesn't really matter that much. I'm using hatched grip now. This may surprise some people. Some people like using polymer. Completely up to them, but I use hatch grip for the vertical recoil control, horizontal recoil control, and flinch resistance. Now, if you're a beginner, you don't have this all the way leveled up, then you can use the rubber grip. The rubber grip helps with vertical recoil control and flinch resistance, but it's completely up to you to use. I would recommend, if you didn't have this leveled up, then use rubber grip until you get to hatch grip. Now, I have the 6.5 Sakura 50 round mags. Here's the thing with this: it increases the recoil control and accuracy, fire rate, movement speed, and magazine ammo capacity with a slight reduction of bullet velocity and range and bullet penetration. I don't really know if there's a better option, unfortunately. The best bet would probably be, if you didn't have the Sakura 50 leveled up, to use the Closet 40, but if you don't have this, then you might as well just use the 303 British 30 round mags until you get these unlocked. But this is kind of one of those attachments that you absolutely need. Like, I don't think that there's an alternative for this one. We're gonna throw on lengthen for the increased bullet velocity, and if you don't have this unlocked, I mean, don't worry if you don't. It's not going to make that huge of a difference. It is helpful for the increased bullet velocity, but it's not absolutely necessary to the where there's going to be useless if not. You can just throw on subsonic and just keep that on there until you get to lengthen. And last but not least, the M19 to 41 hand stop for the vertical recoil control and horizontal recoil control with a decrease of hipfire accuracy. And if you don't have this leveled up, completely fine. Just throw on the Carver foregrip for the vertical recoil control and hipfire accuracy and slight reduction of aim down sight speed. And honestly, you'll be in a good place either one that you use. In fact, Carver foregrip might be the better option. And this is my NZ41 class. Let me know in the comment section down below which class setup you use, and let me know if this video helped you out. I would greatly appreciate it, guys.